Hey y'all, I'm Paige Feldman. I'm a writer and director, and here on this YouTube channel, I'm documenting the making of my first feature as a writer-director. It's called Back to You, and it's a contained romantic comedy. And last week I read live on camera for the first time anonymous feedback that I received from the rewrite clinic I'm in. And I reacted to it and I used it to help figure out how I was going to revise the script next, because if you've been following me for a little bit, you know that right now I'm feeling like there's something not quite right about this script. I'm not super in love with it right now, and I need to find that magic again. And I think these notes, the ones that I read last week, are really gonna help it. And so to show you how they're gonna help it and how I'm gonna implement them, I figured we can go into screen share, my favorite thing, and I can show you how I'm re-outlining my script. Even in the rewrite stage, I love outlining and kind of giving myself a roadmap for how I'm going to tell the story that I want to tell. And so I want to show you my re-outline process and how those notes have helped me gain a lot of clarity on this script. Without further ado, let's pop into the screen share. All right, so here we are. And what I have on here first, this is work that I'd done a while ago. You can see up here, the title disappears when I mouse over it. Blank re-outline for first revision. So this is an outline that I put together, an outline template that I put together when I was revising this script for the first time. And it's actually really helpful in that it's something that I used to create some structure for re-outlining this time for the third revision. And I'll show you this whole thing in a second, but let's just stick here because I want to show you a few things that have changed between first revision and now. And before I dive into it, you can see there's these beat names: chemical equation, meet cute, sexy complication. These are beat names of beats from the romantic comedy taken from, get this, Billy Murnett's Writing the Romantic Comedy. Now this thing is my Bible for writing romantic comedies. It has a whole section that I have bookmarked with the fortune cookie fortune, because I like fortune cookie fortunes, that kind of shows you like the 7 romantic comedy beats. I have a whole video that I did explaining the romantic comedy beats that I'll put up here. And this book, though, I love it because as much as I know and internalize these beats for romantic comedies and also know that sometimes these rules are meant to be broken, it helps kind of keep me on track and give me an impartial guide, especially in times like these where I'm kind of like, there's something not quite right here and I don't know why it doesn't feel right. So this book, I love it, and I'm using it as a roadmap right now as I'm struggling through these rewrites. Now, initially, here is how it worked. So chemical equation, there's 2 of them. And the chemical equation is the moment when 2 characters, we are introduced to them for the first time as an audience, and we get a sense of, here's why these 2 people are going to work together and also give each other grief and conflict. Meet cute, everyone knows that from The Holiday, I would hope. It's the moment that they meet for the first time or re-meet for the first time. Sexy complication, it's the moment where all of the animosity that they have for each other, their problems erupt and they find themselves stuck together in some way. The midpoint is the point where feelings erupt, things happen, something shifts in their relationship. The swivel, or the second turning point, is the moment where these characters kind of enter a point of no return, where their conflict and their wants and their desires clash with the possibility of a romantic future, and it feels like it's going to be one or the other. And the dark moment, or crisis climax, is when those 2 opposing forces come together and explode. Then I Can Make It on My Own is a beat that I found is kind of extra, and I found it in someone's essay about these beats, and they added it, and I love it. And it's the moment where the characters individually realize that with or without love, with or without the support of the person that they've been heading towards on these like speeding, colliding trains the entire movie, they're gonna figure out how to accomplish their goals. That they are enough regardless of whether they have love or whether they have the support of this person. And finally, Joyful Defeat. I hate the name of this beat because it implies that there's something wrong with being in love. And I think that this I Can Make Him on My Own beat actually tempers it into like joyful coexistence. It's like the happily ever after beat. It's the, despite my problems, despite all of the things that have happened between us, despite the complications in my life, I love you and I want to be with you. It's the happy ending. So those are all the beats in a nutshell. And I have attributed certain parts of the story to these beats. So you have backstory for the chemical equation setup 1, the chemical equation setup 2 at the Shiva. So this is when Ash and Mitch first meet because they were like childhood sweethearts. Then they see each other again for the first time in 18 years again. They have a proper meeting when they both come to this desert home that they're going to be staying at together for a week, unbeknownst to them. Sexy complication is when they come together to decide, you know what, it's easier to like be friends than fight. We actually used to have some fun. Midpoint, at this point, spoiler alert, I had the midpoint as the Havdalah section. So Ash and Mitch are both Jewish. Havdalah is a ceremony that you do to mark the end of Shabbat, of the Sabbath. And at this point is when they have sex for the first time as adults. The second turning point, or the swivel, is this video that shows that the thing that Ash was trying to accomplish, some like people close to him had mischaracterized it and kind of tricked him into completing this task under false pretenses. And he blames Mitch for it. The dark moment crisis climax at this point, again, spoiler, was Mitch was putting on a concert and Ash blew it up. And then I Can Make It on My Own. Ash finishes his tasks and Mitch has an audition for a record producer. And then the joyful defeat is a few months later. Mitch invites Ash to a coffee at an open mic. So that's how everything went for the outline for first revision. And I re-outlined and I had all of these like Ash's state, Mitch's state. You know, I went really into their mindset and was really focused on their characters for this first revision. Now, this third revision, I'll go back to this one. I have similar things, similar but different. So let's go into this now and I'll show you how it differs. So first of all, Act 1, I've decided, because one of the notes that I got last week was that the reader felt that Act 2 was unfocused. And so my solution for that was that I was going to theme each act, each 30 pages, each Act 1, Act 2A, Act 2B, that are divided by the midpoint, and Act 3. I was going to theme them, give them a purpose so that I could always be going back to that purpose, make sure all the scenes fit that purpose. Act 1 is boomerang of emotions because we start off with the chemical equation setup and I'm theming each of these beats. So Ash and Mitch as they were young and in love. And Ash's state, I just didn't write the word state because it felt too formal for me right now, is that he was unafraid of his Ash's state was that he was afraid of his feelings and Mitch was unabashed about hers. So this is their starting point. Chemical equation and set up at the Shiva, so 18 years later, Ash and Mitch as they are now, strangers with a grudge. Because at the end of this chemical equation at the beginning, Mitch tells Ash she loves him and Ash can't handle it. I have their inner states right here. Ash is contrary, obstinate, proud, and assured, but as a defense mechanism. So it's like that guy who's like, yeah, I know the answer. No, you're wrong. No, you're like, he's always right, because if he's not right, he doesn't know his place in the world. And Mitch's state is nervous and closed off. And so besides having the note about Act 2 being very like nebulous, I also had a note saying that they weren't quite sure that what Mitch's internal problem was. And so I made sure to track Ash's because it's important that I keep everything on a level. I'm most concerned with Mitch here. So she goes from unabashed about her feelings to telling this guy she loves him. He doesn't say it back and he ghosts her right after she has sex for the first time. Like big, just all kinds of trauma. She blames herself. She's like, I said I was in love. I have to shut down these feelings because I will ruin myself again. That hurts so much. I can't do it again. So she is nervous and closed off, afraid of expressing herself, afraid of the implications, and not willing to do it. Then they meet at the house. Still, this is the same. You'll notice that these beats all take place at the same place. Backstory at the Shiva, at the house, ice cream in Act 1. So there's forced proximity between Ash and Mitch. That's the theme of this meet cute and all the events surrounding this beat. And they're trying to repel one another. So Ash feels violated because he was hoping to escape someplace where he didn't have to be on the defense all the time and worried about the way that he was grieving and other people's perceptions of him. And Mitch, before Ash got there, was very free and like, okay, being with herself. But as soon as Ash gets there, she closes off, but doesn't close off in like an aggressive way in the way that Ash does. She closes off with like this grace and poise and genuine bland politeness. Like Ash and Mitch here are from Los Angeles, but a lot of what Mitch is doing is based off of me having grown up in the Midwest. And if you need to just be neutral about something, if you don't want to talk to anybody, the best thing to do is to just be polite, fake being fine, and then find a place to get your anger out where it's safe and quiet and away from the judgment of people. And so that's kind of Mitch, except she doesn't have as much of that Midwestern repression practice like I do. I'm not very great at it anymore, having lived in LA for like a decade, but Mitch's anger ekes out through the cracks of attempted grace. So she's not feeling violated necessarily, but she is feeling anxious and afraid of what happens if her emotions get out. And so that's her inner conflict, her inner state is keep my emotions in check. The sexy complication, they get ice cream together. They happen to run into each other and they realize we like each other once. Maybe we can enjoy this time that we have to spend together. And Ash is humbled because the reason that he kind of gives in is that he accidentally got Mitch's guitar wet and he feels bad. And Mitch, when she sees Ash humble himself, she says, okay, anger is an emotion that I feel and that seems to be okay. So she expresses her anger without this veneer of politeness. And at this point, I decided that Ash's description up here at the chemical equation of the Shiva, contrary, obstinate, proud, assured, but as a defense mechanism, those are all walls that he has up to hide his true self. Because sometimes if you're anxious and afraid people won't like you, you put up these walls because if people see the marshmallow inside, see the squishy center, see that vulnerability, it could break you. So he takes down his pride to apologize. And that's the easiest one to take down. It's difficult. I don't like apologizing. Like I do it when I need to and when but it's always tough. These characters are like little bits of me in every one of them. As you can see, there's 4 beats in 30 pages of Act 1. I didn't really feel like I needed to create a theme for Act 1 beyond this boomerang of you're young in love, you hate each other, you try to repel each other. I don't know, like the boomerang comes back. Maybe we like each other. It all feels like it tracks. But Act 2A, there's only one beat in Act 2A, and that's the midpoint. And so I've decided to create like a general, and especially because Act 2 is the act that I got the note on, I decided to create a general roadmap for how these 30 pages are going to go. So Act 2A is let's work through our shit. Ash's motion is he gets taken down a peg. He takes down the obstinacy wall, and he learns some flexibility. And he also moves forward and into this relationship with Mitch just as a friendship through vulnerability. Mitch, by contrast, she learns to listen. Her main character energy calms down because as I was rereading the script, and I reread the script before I made this whole outline, is her whole thing is like, she says the word me a lot. And despite her having been hurt, she did do some stuff to Ash after he hurt her in retaliation, and she doesn't really take ownership of that. So one thing that I'm doing that I'm changing this round is I'm thinking about Mitch as someone who also needs help, who's also at fault in some way. And hopefully that will help her internal growth and make her internal conflict of needing to be free and comfortable with her emotions and able to express them and not afraid of them and make that shine. So Mitch will also move forward through vulnerability, is something that she needs to learn as well. She and Ash need to learn vulnerability, but in different ways. Ash in terms of connecting with people, and Mitch in terms of trusting and connecting with herself, because she very much is a people pleaser. Now here's where one of the big changes happens. And part of this is because when I was reading through my script, I realized the Shabbat point. And Shabbat is the Jewish Sabbath, and there are some rituals and songs that go along with it, and I included that in the script. And in the script, when I included it, Mitch and Ash kind of end up like having this like wrestling tickle fight that turns a little bit sexual. Not in a weird way, just like normal way. Like just cute, like wrestling, like, uh-oh, maybe we got a little bit too close here. And that to me felt like a little bit of a turning point. That is on page 48 of the script, or maybe even 47, 48. And the Havdalah scene, which was formerly the midpoint, see right here, was on page 77, 78. The script itself is 116 pages long. A midpoint is not 78 pages through. A midpoint is more like 50 to 60 pages through. So page-wise, that made sense to move the Shabbat. And also, as I was reading it, I realized this is a moment that is a turning point for the relationship. And my intention at the beginning was to have them having sex for the first time being that turning point. Except I pegged the Havdalah scene as the midpoint before I realized that Ash and Mitch had been together before. At the beginning, when I was first outlining this, I thought they're just family friends who've never really had a chance to have their love grow because they kind of didn't like each other. It wasn't working. So I made them lovers to enemies to lovers, or a second chance romance story. And so they've already had sex, and that changed their relationship for the worse in a lot of ways, because they weren't quite mature enough to handle the feelings that came along with it. Mitch wasn't necessarily mature enough to pick her time. Not that like anyone should like have to pick their time to say I love you, but that's like an overwhelming thing. And Ash wasn't mature enough to consider others' feelings. Even though he probably did love Mitch, he was just afraid someone tells you they love you, and that's a responsibility that they're putting on you in a way. It's a responsibility to not hurt them. And he wasn't prepared for that. And he wasn't prepared for the depth of his own feelings. That, like, sex is a bigger deal to them in a way because it's already happened and already gone bad. And I don't think it works as a midpoint anymore. So I moved Shabbat to this, like, flirtation where suddenly, instead of being enemies who are just working through all of this, like, gunk and this resentment that they've had set up over the past 18 years, they're suddenly joking and laughing like friends again, and they've gotten rid of that gunk. And so then they're able to turn their relationship into something more romantic because they've gotten through the emotional stuff. So it's almost a reversal in a way in terms of how you expect relationships to go, where you have the first part is like the exciting honeymoon phase where you get all over each other and you can't stop touching and being excited. And then you get through that and you get to some of the gunk. And for Ash and Mitch, they're in the gunk from the beginning, and then they get rid of it, and they're able to move forward into Act 2B, Friends to Lovers. Ash has a focus on vulnerability, kindness, and giving. He's learning to care and starting to fall in love. It's interesting to me as I'm writing this out that I realize that Ash is more willing to fall in love right now than Mitch is, because Mitch has already done it and already been burned by it. This is even like Ash's surprise and happiness when they have this new friendship has romantic possibilities. Mitch's surprise and excitement and trepidation. Is this really happening? Do I want it? Like, do I want to be hurt again? She's trying to figure out whether she wants to open up her heart and open up her feelings and be vulnerable again. Whereas Ash has never done it before. So Ash is almost in the place that Mitch was 18 years ago in terms of his emotional development. And now back to Act 2B, Mitch also has a focus on vulnerability. She also has openness and finding safety and sharing her feelings again. She's learning to become the person she was at 18. Because interestingly enough, like for Mitch, this internal conflict and internal journey is all about returning to who she was. For Ash, it's about giving himself permission to become the person that he wants to be. So now we get to the swivel and second turning point, which in the previous outline was Bubby Esta's video. And now it is Havdalah. So this is the moment where they have sex for the first time. So this whole friends to lovers thing, this is them continuing their relationship, allowing it to grow, allowing themselves to be vulnerable, become close, and then they bang. Then it all comes to a head and they have sex, and they can't say it, but they can't say I love you yet. And so what I like about this is that the emotional component is the scarier component and the one that has the most weight. Sex is an important step for them, but it doesn't mean I love you yet. It means let's get back to who we were. Let's get back to the relationship we had. Let's get back to that comfort level. The way that this becomes a swivel second turning point is I think I initially kind of had, and in the script, it's a kind of a lovey scene in a way. And I think I need to change it so that there's a bit more tension here. Like they have sex and they're like physically on the right path. They're enjoying themselves. They're having fun. But now there's this tension that harkens back to when they were young and in love and they had sex for the first time and it went badly. So now this works really well, I think, as the swivel and second turning point, because we're right on the cusp of their conflicts coming together and their love being a problem and everything blowing up. And they're back to where they were when they were 18. And that circular logic feels really good to me. I'm getting goosebumps. I think I'm getting excited about the script again. Okay. And Ash is feeling love but doesn't know it. Mitch is feeling love again, but she's afraid to say it. So they're back exactly where they were at 18. Then the dark moment and crisis climax is Bobby Esta's video. So this happens a few scenes later. And initially, I showed you this was the concert moment. But I actually, in my previous rewrite, when I cut 40 pages, I deleted that concert moment because it was sort of a double moment. Like after this video kind of really felt like it was taking the place of the concert moment. And then Ash and Mitch were hanging around each other for an extra 20 pages for absolutely no reason. So the video happens where Bubby Esta, Ash's dead grandma, and Ash finds out that his dead grandma, and when she was alive, and his cousin kind of conspired to give him this list of tasks to do in order to help him find ways to ask people for help and like become an actualized good person and not be so closed off and defensive and anymore. And Ash, because Mitch and Alana, his cousin, are best friends, thought maybe that Mitch and Alana were in on it together. He thought Mitch was lying to him. He immediately goes to mistrust. And like I said, they're afraid of these new and old feelings. They're waiting for another shoe to drop. When it does, they blame each other. Ash, just before this whole like video happens, another wall comes down, his assuredness defense mechanism, but it's ready to come back up. He doesn't feel comfortable without it. And this is a new addition right here. Ash tells him she loves him again before this video. I'm gonna try it out. I haven't done this rewrite yet, but I think it might be necessary to have Mitch be like, I love you. And Ash handles it better, but not perfectly. And then this video happens. Walls come up. He throws it back in her face again, and she's just like done. And that's what brings her down. Now I know the notes that I got last week, they were like just kvelling over my second act break, which is this moment right here. It is currently this moment, even though I just moved in the outline. I already did it in the previous draft. But I think that moment could be stronger, and I think it needs to be stronger with something relating to the I love you, because in this re-outline, I figured out how important the I love you is. And finally, we're in Act 3. You have to learn to love yourself first, which is, and by first, I mean before you can fully appreciate being in a relationship with someone else. And this is the theme that I like really settled on when I was doing that first rewrite here. And it's really cool that I themed this after I wrote out these 2 beats, because these 2 beats Act 3 is pretty quick, and these 2 beats are enough to kind of give me a sense of what's happening. But I feel like the theme that I was going for is actually going to be present, which is really cool. So I can make it on my own beat. Ash finishes the tasks on his own, and Mitch's audition. It's the same. Ash opens himself up and asks for help, mistrusts herself, and writes her feelings. Because Mitch's issue is that she couldn't really write a song that was a hit, because the last time she wrote a song that really incorporated her feelings in it was when Ash hurt her. And after that, she never felt ready to go there again. So this moment is her getting back into her actual feelings and writing a song from her heart, from her wealth of experience, something that's so specific that it becomes personal and universal. Ash asks for help for grieving. He forgives Alana, and he forgives his grandmother for dying, and does all of this with the help of a community, which is something he'd been avoiding all film. So they both fix themselves, having gotten out of this relationship, and then joyful defeat, instead of getting one of them inviting the other, they meet up. I don't know if they're just going to meet up. I'm not sure, but I'm kind of struggling with the way that I've written the ending now in terms of the dialogue and that minutia. So I'm hoping that getting everything up to this will help me find some clarity in my ending. But the theme is I'm happy with who I am, but I'd be happier if you were with me. Ash needs to say I love you. And Mitch, at this moment, needs to show him it doesn't matter if he does love her or not. Her feelings are hers. And if he can't accept them, then that's fine. But if he can, she wants him. So Mitch's arc is about this like independence that she needs to find, and Ash is about interdependence, not codependence, interdependence, needing people and being part of a community. They've changed, they've almost like become each other, but because they still have the parts of themselves that brought them there in the first place and brought them to conflict, they both are able to rely on themselves and also rely and be part of a community. So that is my re-outline for this next revision of Back to You. The notes I got last week, the anonymous notes, were so helpful in that they pinpointed problems that I was having that I didn't even know that I had. I think I might have subconsciously known them, which is why I was so like, oh, nothing's working. But just hearing Act 2 is meandering was incredibly helpful because it forced me to look at where I put all of the beats in Act 2 and forced me to say, all right, what are each of these sections of Act 2 really about? So now that I feel like I have a really good sense of that and a sense of where Mitch is in all of this and her state of mind, the fact that like, I knew this already. I knew that she was afraid of expressing her feelings and afraid of being wrong and being judged for her feelings. But now that I'm really going through this with her progression in mind in terms of what's she thinking, what's she feeling, not what she's doing, but where's her mindset, I feel like I have a really strong handle on her, and as a result, have made some changes. Like down here, she tells him she loves him again. Like, that's a strong character choice that's also gonna hurt real bad. And I need to hurt my characters badly so that they can grow and change and become better people. So that's the plan for the third revision of Back to You for what will become my fourth draft of the script. And I'll be back here next week giving you an update on how things are going with it now that I kind of feel like I might be in love with this story again, or at least hopeful about the future possibilities, because there were a dark few weeks there, y'all. Thanks y'all so much for sticking with me throughout these several weeks where I was just so unsure about this script. Now that I'm coming out on the other side and seeing the light, I really appreciate you all watching. Every view is just, I feel like that support, but if you want to give me some extra, hit the like button or leave a comment. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll be back here next week, and I hope you are too, for more of Cake Fight Presents The Making of. Thanks y'all for watching. Bye.